Hey, what's up, everybody? Today there's going to be a special report about the swing states that are swinging to Trump. So, about 2 weeks ago, I brought a report to you about the current state of immigration in the United States and the cost and the benefits. And there have been some recent developments since that, which was about 2 weeks ago. There was a big debate. It was watched by tens of millions of people in the U.S., which I think was underwhelming and a non event. Another ongoing development has been Hillary outspending Trump in key battleground states, in some places 50 times what he's spending or 70 times what he's spending or more. And despite the fact that he's been outspent, Trump is really beginning to pull ahead in key battleground states that can give him the victory. And that's thanks to his ground game, the numerous rallies he's been holding, and word of mouth that's been spreading around, through the internet and just people in their communities. And one news outlet took a sample in early August. It showed that Trump had double the amount of events as Hillary and 10 times the amount of attendees. And, Hillary's been having these small events like in California with donors that can give her millions and millions of dollars. Let's talk about the debate real fast. There was no discussion of Trump's biggest issue, immigration, which I talked to you guys about last week. Moderator was an inexperienced diversity candidate. Take that for what you will. And I think the big takeaway is that the crowd questions and the context was pro Hillary, and that just revealed to many people the bias that we know about, which has, I think, destroyed media credibility. And you can see the most recent Gallup poll shows that, the trust in mass media is at an all-time low. So let's look at what's going on in the swing states. And I think the key area for Trump is the Midwest, and he's been really targeting that area, and he's been doing a lot of campaigning there. That's why he's been talking to him about trade deals and manufacturing, trying to help basically the worker, which, the Democrats haven't really been doing despite a lot of the loyalty they get in the Midwest. Plus, the Midwest is are kind of the greatest victims of the failed top-down social engineering that we see in places like Detroit, Cleveland, and Chicago. Detroit was a place, where they basically put blacks in certain areas, and you can see what happens in Detroit, where you have, thousands of rabid dogs running around at this point. So, a lot of politicians have failed the Midwest, and that could be a good thing, I guess, for Trump to get elected. The Midwest is a place whose culture is constantly belittled and under attack by the coastal elites. And, when I was first starting to research this election, I was looking what's going on in places like Iowa, and it was just a big football place. I think football is going to help people solve their problems. It's kind of a waste of time. You're sitting on the couch, you're drinking beer, you're not getting involved in your community. Your town or whatever is represented by a bunch of these, black ex-cons from different cities, and I don't understand how that gives you any sense of community. But finally, football viewership appears to be going down. So I think that means people are getting more mobilized. So Trump is getting more and more support in places like Iowa and even Minnesota, which is really liberal. It includes Minneapolis, which has all these like Somalian immigrants. It actually looks like Trump will win in Minnesota as well. So I think the Midwest is finally waking up, and that's going to be huge for Trump. Then there's the key state of Florida, which is ever so critical in the Bush-Gore battle. Let's have a quick look at what's going on in Florida. I think actually Florida is easily going to go to Trump. Hillary's outspending Trump in Florida 53-1. But despite that, he's basically in the lead. People call Trump racist, but Cuban Latinos are proving a strong base for Trump. Then there's all the retirees, that moved down to Florida from these northern states, and people who leave because of the tax environment in some of the northern states. And so that population has been growing in Florida, and they're also going to help Trump. And you have, people who are considered Southerners in the Panhandle or whatever. And actually, Florida's had some of the biggest rallies ever historically for a political candidate in the U.S. So it looks like that's going to be a lock, but you still have to get people talking about it, get the turnout. North Carolina wasn't, immediately a Trump state. Obama lost in 2012 here to Romney. And there have been recent race riots, which, whenever that happens, that's actually helpful for Trump because he's been doing a good job of painting himself as a law and order candidate. And even there was like an article in the liberal New Yorker or whatever that the riots are actually going to help get that edge for Trump in North Carolina. Colorado is also an important swing state. I'm not too concerned about them. We don't need them. It's a weird state. It's actually 80% white, so they're not experiencing all these problems of immigration, multiculturalism, and black crime as in all the other states in the Union. They're kind of like Switzerland in that regard, but even Switzerland is close to multicultural, quote-unquote, France and Germany. But, the writing's been on the wall. There are some trends. There's a rapidly growing Hispanic population. I don't know how that's working out for them. So, Colorado could go either way. It's also socially liberal. They have, pot and stuff. So I don't think it's not a big issue at this point. Same with Pennsylvania. Hillary's outspending Trump here 77 times, and they seem to be succumbing to it. Oddly enough, it's one of the most Christian states in the Union I saw. But I guess the college-educated people are too cool for Trump, so we don't need them. But there's a surprising amount of support for Trump in certain demographics among the poor, the less educated, and actually minorities are much more for Trump than they were for Romney. So we'll see what happens. And again, we don't really need Pennsylvania. If we lose, we can all blame Pennsylvania. So here's my final prediction. Trump is going to win. He's going to help the country. He's going to win by carrying Florida. We talked about that. Iowa, which he's winning over, and maybe Minnesota, but also Arizona and North Carolina, especially with the recent riots. And then, again, maybe Minnesota or New Mexico will probably seal the deal. It's going to be one of these sort of more esoteric places. But, all in all, he's in very good shape, and he has something called momentum, and he has word of mouth. And despite being outspent on a ridiculously high level by Hillary, thanks to her financial donors, again, look at my other video. Those donors are benefiting from immigration. Her top 5 donors are big financial companies. And despite all this, he's gaining momentum in the Midwest, and people are going nuts for Trump. It's going to dismantle the corrupt media, and it's going to be a good thing. So thanks for watching my video, and I'll see you next time.